Salutations, everybody. It is Matty here today, and let's talk about Halo Infinite. So this past weekend, we had a flight test. It's the second one of the game so far. We have another one coming up this next weekend, which is going to feature Big Team Battle. Now, my original plan was to stream this past weekend and then make a video after next weekend. But honestly, I had just a really rough weekend, and I decided to just play on my own. And I wanted to share some thoughts here after spending some time with the flight test. Just real quick, though, shout out to everyone who had some kind words to say over the weekend. It was not a great one, so I just really immensely appreciate all of you. And also a shout out to everyone who's joined up over on Retro Rebound. We just passed 5K subs. This is my new retro gaming channel. We just launched a new video today, so if you're interested in that content, please do check it out. There will be a link in the description down below. But now let's talk about Halo Infinite, because there's a separation now of the hype, I feel. The first flight test sort of happened upon us. I was like, oh my god, we're finally playing Halo Infinite. It was surprisingly mechanically sound, but now we've had a moment to collect ourselves. There's been some interesting news stories in between the two flights. We had the confirmation that Forge and Co-op would not be available at launch. We still have yet to see another look at the campaign, so some worries ramped up a little bit. I'm certainly guilty of that. So I really wanted to dive back into this and see if, with those concerns in tow, did the mechanics of the game overrule that, alongside talking about some of the new content that we got here for Halo Infinite. But first, a word from our sponsor. I'm experiencing a series of use stresses unlike anything I've ever had before. I'm working on a ton of great video content. I'm working on a video game. I'm trying to set a record for the TMNT arcade. And then I'm trying to sleep. How do I do all of this? How do I manage all of this? I think I need some Skillshare in my life. Okay, so I know I'm not the only one who has a lot going on for themselves and wants to shoot for the stars, but you don't want to crumble beneath the weight of your ambitions as you make that big step forward. That's why I like the class Productivity Masterclass Create a Custom System That Works by Thomas Frank. And during this class, I learned about trusting the system you've built for yourself. It's important to have a personally tailored task management system that works just for you and resist the chaos that is slowly encroaching around you. So with that in mind, if you're interested in Skillshare, then keep in mind that the first 1,000 people to use my link in the description will get a free trial of Skillshare Premium membership. And after that, it is only $10 a month. So go ahead and check it out. So I want to start off with, of course, PvP. The first flight test was bots. And I said a lot of times to people, you can only tell so much with bots. We got a good feel for gunplay, for movement, and that was really it. Beyond that, you couldn't really predict through a bot how a actual player would engage with the map and outsmart you, outgun you. What was the true balance like? And overall, I felt very encouraged walking out. Where Too Long Didn't Read is, from top to bottom, Halo Infinite is so mechanically sound that it will be, in my opinion, undoubtedly fun. It just really boils down to getting the campaign right, hoping the monetization isn't too in your face, but otherwise, what they have here is a really good first-person shooter that feels like a direct sequel to Halo 3 in so many ways that we never got, and is infinitely, pardon the pun, above anything we've seen from 343 so far. So I'm feeling super encouraged on a gameplay front. We're going to emphasize that gameplay front before anyone clips me if the story ends up being horrific, but I digress. Let's talk a little bit more in depth. So one of the new maps that got introduced was Behemoth. And immediately, I fell in love when playing this. I loved everything about it. The power weapon spawn points, the ways I got creative with certain pickups like the grapple shots or the repulsor. I loved messing with the repulsor, just bouncing myself off the floor and flying above enemies. It's a sandbox that encourages you so often to play with its toys. And because of that, I found myself loving replaying maps over and over. It was like the experience I get from a single player game of returning again with new knowledge and going, how do I do this, this, and that? Except it was in multiplayer. And I really haven't experienced that probably since some of the original Bungie Halos, which I thought was a very encouraging sign. But Behemoth, to me, was awesome. It was a moment we got to see what it felt like with some vehicles on the map. There was a Ghost, a Mongoose, a Warthog, with a standard turret on the back. The sound for the Warthog was not good. They need to beef up the sound a little bit in this game overall, I feel. But that's besides the point. I think what matters is mechanically how it felt, which was just like a typical Halo Warthog. What I like, though, is the way that the map was structured. There were enough points of cover and enough high points where something that I felt when returning to Master Chief Collection is you get in the vehicle, you wreak havoc. Especially if you had the Gauss turret. It was over. And here it felt like you could get around, you could get a good killing spree, but you weren't at such an advantage. And once again, this is just a testament to great map design where, like I mentioned in my first flight preview, there's a lot of tunnels underneath, there's lots of points of cover, high points, and there's not really one dominant spot on the map. Also, the spawns were much better. Once again, returning to MCC, as much as I love Halo 3, I was reminded sometimes of, you can really spawn directly on top of people, and it became a pet peeve of mine, especially in my Call of Duty days. To not really see that be an issue here was relieving, to say the least. The new modes that we got for this were CTF and Strongholds. We already had Slayer in the bots, but still, I played around with that too. Strongholds plays a lot like Domination in Call of Duty. You got 3 points on the map. You sit on it for a little bit. You capture it. I love Domination, so to me, this was great. It was a much more mobile Halo game mode that involved like different points on the map rather than, I think, the 2 spawn points like you typically see in Halo. Even in Slayer, you always move into their spawn, flip their spawn, get them pinned again, and just kind of rinse and repeat. CTF, in their spawn, back to your spawn. It's always like a one line back and forth. But what I liked about Strongholds is a lot of triangulation. So everyone was moving around at different points in the map, and I felt it was the strongest test of like, how are the spawns? How is the mobility? How can you get experimental with certain objects to really move around the map quickly? I saw someone use the grapple shot for CTF in a clip on Twitter, and it was just one of those moments where this game is going to be carried so strongly through social media because you're going to see people pull off some wild stuff. There are some phenomenal clips already out there, and that's what I loved about some of the toys they gave you, some of the gadgets they gave you, is because you picked it up and you messed around with it a little bit and went, okay, I think I see what I can do here. And just every time moments approached, it didn't feel like I had to be this MLG pro to figure out what I could have done to get a little crafty with it. So I think you're going to see some really exciting plays with this game and be able to do them yourself. Look, I used to be very good at Call of Duty. Like, I played competitively for many years, but then I left that life behind and started to play single-player RPGs because, I was burning out a little bit. But coming back to it, I'm not as good as I once was with FPS games, but I still have a little bit left in the tank, if you will. But even then, I don't think I'm as good, and I was still able to pull off some pretty cool stuff. So that was a really encouraging sign to me as well. There were some interesting bugs, like a melee bug, which 343 plans on fixing, that people were picking up on. But the other major talking point that I did view as somewhat of a red flag was the challenge progression in Halo Infinite. So the only way that you can progress in this game is through earning challenges. You don't get general match XP. Instead, it's like I saw in this flight test, get 5 kills with the AR. Go ahead, play 1 match. There were some that were passively unlocked, and while their gains were minimal, they would just sort of happen in the background. But there were ones that were a little bit more particular, if you will. And I'm still not sold on this system. I still don't think it was a good choice to take it this route, even if there are a lot of challenges. I already saw how they plan to monetize it. If you buy the premium version of the Battle Pass, you're going to unlock 1 additional challenge. There are consumables that give you XP boosts. There are consumables that allow you to swap challenges. So I looked at those, raised an eyebrow. I was like, okay, that brings me to my concern still of monetization. We don't know how things are going to be priced out. They give you fake credits, which you can experience buying cosmetics from the store, and they have certain amounts. But when I, for example, clicked, hey, buy credits, like, I want to see what are your fake prices for your monetization in this game, they didn't have any of that, or at least for me, it didn't load. And so I still really don't have much of a clue on how they're going to price tag this game, because the multiplayer is going to be free. And what's interesting is Halo Master Chief Collection has a somewhat similar system where as you complete challenges and earn XP in general, by the way, you'll level up a Battle Pass, which is infinitely there, just like Halo Infinite. And then you'll spend these challenge points on different bits of armor across all the Halo games that they're still releasing to this day for free, which is, by the way, on a separate note, incredible. So long story short, not totally sold on this challenge system, still a bit hazy, and I feel like the way they're being a little cagey about it, I want to see it at launch, and I think that's the only way we'll be able to tell. And again, it's the one part of this game alongside the campaign where I'm sort of holding my breath and going, okay, like, I like what they're doing with like the battle passes there. There's no FOMO. It's just go to it when you want to play with it. I think that's great because when I hop back into Master Chief Collection for this past couple of weeks, it's been nice to just go back to old battle passes and go like, all right, what do we got here? And go through their content and not feel like I missed out and pick up on things that I thought looked cool that I had missed. And that was really nice to see. So I think carrying over that element will be great. But speaking of going back to MCC, that's something I've been doing lately. And so then I took the ultimate dive into the deep end. And I thought to myself, okay, we've played a lot of Halo Infinite with sprinting. You're constantly moving around at a fast pace. You're mantling. And so then I went to Halo 3, which is, as I said in this video, this game feels like on a mechanical level, on an ideas front, like a sequel to Halo 3's multiplayer. And what was the transition like in speed, in feel, and what I was pretty shocked that I experienced was I thought I would lose a step because I was so used to being able to sprint, mantle, all of that, but I felt a lot more comfortable. So when I returned to Halo MCC, I was rusty. I was getting the crap beat out of me. I was a shell of my former self from like 8th grade when I first played this game and grinded it every single day. I was like, I'm ashamed. But then I fired it back up here after Halo Infinite, and the transition was smooth, even though I think the pacing of map movement is completely different. And I thought that was also really encouraging. I thought the mentality of how can I mess around with like this bubble shield carried into that experience a little bit more. Of course, there's history there, but to my point is that I didn't feel like I lost a step. So for those of you who are worried that maybe Infinite will overshadow the Master Chief Collection, if you want to go back, I wasn't experiencing that after playing it a lot this weekend. Really, the point being, it feels like Halo. And I think that is probably the most important thing that they had to nail with this. So I walked out of this feeling on a gameplay front, again, I need to emphasize, very encouraged. I thought the maps were fantastic. I enjoyed the modes. I didn't really walk away with any concerns outside of like how our challenge progression is really going to feel in the full game. How's monetization going to be done? And of course, the campaign could be answered at any point in time, and maybe that worry goes away. So while there has been a lot of, I think personally, bad news surrounding Halo Infinite, or unfortunate news, however you want to term it, I do think mechanically this game is very strong, and they've got a good one here. It's just about the ingredients that you're putting on top of this very good burger that can either make it delicious, right? Like we're laying some bacon, some cheese on top, or we about to lay like friggin' tomatoes, lettuce, like the unnecessary, like get this off of my burger, right? Maybe I'm alone on that. I don't know. We'll see. But anyway, those are just some thoughts I wanted to share on Halo Infinite. Again, I apologize that I couldn't stream this weekend, but it was particularly rough, so I didn't really want to. But we'll be back for streams next weekend to experience big team battle together, and that'll be a really good time and an interesting test at that, because that was the one thing that I really didn't like when I went back to Halo MCC was big team battle was frustrating. So I want to see how that feels in Infinite. Time will tell. Until next time, though, let me know your thoughts in the comments down below on Halo Infinite, if you played in the flight test or if you're just curious about it. Of course, do consider checking out Retro Rebound. Once again, link in the description down below. I appreciate all of you who have continued to support that, and get ready. I'm going to be talking about it a lot, so this won't be the first time I mention it. And with that, I'll talk with all of you very soon. Once again, Twitter and Instagram in the link in the description down below too, if you're interested in that. Stay sexy, stay active. I love you all. Peace.